Goodbye, sleepy souls. Lock your doors, turn off the lights, and get comfortable. Before we start, drop a comment and let me know which part of the world you're listening from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Close your eyes and let's dive into the first story.
I never thought a YouTube video would lead me into a life or death situation. My name is Mike. I'm a divorced dad, and I don't get as much time with my 8-year-old son, Brody, as I'd like. I wanted to do something special for our winter break. I'm a huge fan of a specific travel vlogger who had posted a video titled "The Most Peaceful Cabin in the Great Northwest." It looked perfect, a tiny A-frame cabin tucked deep in a forest miles from the nearest town. No internet, no distractions, just me and my son. We arrived in late December. It was freezing, the ground covered in a thick blanket of crisp snow. The cabin was as cute as it looked online, but the isolation hit me the moment I turned off the engine. It was silent, dead silent. There was no cell service. I knew that going in, but seeing those no service bars felt different when the sun started to dip behind the jagged tree line. It was exactly 6 p.m. The sky was that deep, bruised purple color right before total darkness. Brody was on the rug playing with his Legos, and I was trying to get the wood stove going. I happened to glance out the large front window that faced the dense tree line. About 50 yards away, standing perfectly still between two pine trees, was a man. He wasn't wearing winter gear, just a dark, oversized hooded sweatshirt and jeans. He didn't have a bag or a dog or anything that suggested he was hiking. He was just looking at the cabin. "Hey, Brody, stay away from the window for a second, okay, buddy?" I said, trying to keep my voice level. I watched him for 5 minutes. He didn't move an inch. I waved, thinking maybe it was a neighbor, but he didn't wave back. I reached for the light switch and flipped the outdoor porch light on. The man didn't flinch, but now that he was illuminated, I could see he was wearing a pale plastic mask, one of those cheap, expressionless ones you find at a party store. My heart did a slow, heavy roll in my chest. I locked the front door and checked the windows. I felt a surge of guilt for bringing my son here. "Dad, why are you locking the door?" Brody asked, his voice small. He'd seen the look on my face. "Just being safe, kiddo," I lied. For the next hour, the man stayed outside. He didn't try to break in, he just circled. I'd see him past the kitchen window, then 10 minutes later, I'd see his silhouette through the frosted glass of the back door. He was pacing the perimeter of the cabin, like he was herding us. Every time he passed the window, he'd tap on the glass. Not a loud bang, just a slow, rhythmic tap, tap, tap. By 8 p.m., I couldn't take it anymore. The fire was dying and the cabin was getting cold. I realized that if he wanted to get in, he probably could. The cabin was mostly glass and old wood. I decided we had to make a run for the truck. It was parked only 20 feet from the front door. "Brody, listen to me," I whispered, grabbing his winter coat. "We're going to play a game. We're going to run to the truck as fast as we can, okay? Don't look around, just look at the door." Brody was crying now, but he nodded. I grabbed my keys and a heavy iron poker from the fireplace. I threw the door open. The freezing air hit us like a wall. I didn't see the man, but I felt him. We scrambled into the truck and I slammed the locks down. I felt a momentary relief as I jammed the key into the ignition. Crank, crank, crank. Nothing. The engine wouldn't turn over. Come on, I hissed, twisting the key again. Crank, sputter, silence. My eyes drifted to the hood of the truck. In the glow of the dashboard lights, I saw it. Several thick wires had been pulled out from under the front grille and sliced clean. He had disabled the car while we were inside the cabin. Then a face appeared at the driver's side window. It was the mask. It was pressed right against the glass. The man wasn't trying to open the door, he just stood there, his breath fogging up the window, staring at me and my terrified son. He raised a hand and slowly started to draw a circle in the frost on the glass. I felt completely helpless. I was trapped in a dead metal box with my son, and there was no one for miles. The man reached into his pocket, and I saw the glint of something metal. I gripped the fire poker, ready to go down fighting, when suddenly the force behind him lit up. Two powerful beams of light cut through the trees. A roar of a heavy engine echoed off the hills. The man in the mask froze. He looked toward the approaching lights, then back at us. Without a word, he turned and melted into the pitch-black woods, disappearing instantly into the shadows. A beat-up Ford F-150 pulled into the clearing and screeched to a halt behind my truck. A man in a heavy flannel jacket hopped out, looking confused. "Is everything all right here? It's the owner, Dave. I noticed the wood bin was low on my way out this morning, so I figured I'd drop off a fresh batch for you since it's gonna be a cold one tonight." I stumbled out of the car, nearly collapsing in the snow. I told him everything. Dave called the police from his satellite radio. They searched the woods for hours, but they found nothing. No tracks other than mine and Dave's. The stranger had been careful to stay on the frozen patches of ice where footprints wouldn't take. The police told me that the YouTuber who stayed there before me had millions of views. They think someone might have recognized the cabin from the video and waited for the next person to show up. I never found out who he was. I don't know if he wanted to hurt us or if he just enjoyed the terror. But I do know one thing. I don't watch travel vlogs anymore, and I never stay anywhere that doesn't have a solid cell signal.
This is the story of how our dream honeymoon in California turned into a living nightmare. My name is Maddy, and if you're listening to this in bed, I hope you've checked your locks tonight. Ethan and I had saved for years for this trip. Coming from Australia, we had finally reached USA, staying in this stunning modern Airbnb in a quiet town north of LA. It had these massive floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the Pacific. Ethan is a personal trainer, fit, athletic, and a total creature of habit. Every morning at 6 a.m., he'd go for a run along the cliffs. I'd stay in bed for another hour, then walk down the road to a little local cafe to get our lattes. It was a perfect routine. Until that Tuesday. When I stepped out of the house that morning, the air was unusually still. As I walked down the driveway, I noticed a beat-up, dark blue sedan parked a few houses down. The windows were tinted so dark, they looked like ink. I felt a tiny prickle on the back of my neck, but I brushed it off. I had my AirPods in, the sun was out, I felt safe. I got the coffees and walked back about 20 minutes later. As I turned onto our street, my heart skipped a beat. That same blue sedan was now parked directly in front of our rental. I let myself in, locking the door behind me. The house was dead quiet. I set the coffees on the counter and went to open the blinds to see the ocean. That's when I saw it. On the outside of the glass sliding door, right at eye level, was a fresh smudge. It was a perfect handprint, 4 fingers and a thumb, as if someone had been standing on our deck, leaning against the glass, peering inside. My blood turned to ice. Ethan was still out. I messaged him, "Hey, are you back yet? Coffee's ready." No reply. I tried to stay calm. I went to the kitchen to make some toast, just trying to occupy my hands. I was standing there, buttering the bread, when I heard it. A heavy thud from directly above me. In our bedroom. I froze. My breath hitched in my throat. I knew for a fact I was the only person who should be in that house. Then I heard a slow, deliberate creak of a floorboard. Someone was walking around upstairs. I didn't think. I couldn't. I just knew I had to get out. I couldn't go out the front. What if the blue car was waiting? I went for the back sliding door, the one with the handprint. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely turn the deadbolt. Click. As I slid the door open, a sound came from the top of the stairs that I will never forget. It wasn't a shout or a threat. It was a low, guttural humming, a man's voice vibrating with a terrifying calmness. He knew I was there. He was watching me from the shadows of the hallway. I bolted. I ran across the deck, down the stairs, and threw myself at the 6-foot wooden fence. I've never been a climber, but adrenaline is a hell of a thing. I scrambled over, scraping my palms raw, and landed hard in the neighbor's yard. I looked back through the slats of the fence. A man in a dark hoodie was standing in the doorway I had just escaped from. He wasn't chasing me. He was just watching. "Help! Someone help me!" I screamed, sprinting down the neighbor's side gate and onto the street. I saw a figure running toward me from the distance. It was Ethan. He saw my face, saw me covered in dirt and tears, and he didn't even have to ask. I just pointed at the house and sobbed, "Ethan, he's inside! Ethan, he's inside!" Ethan didn't stop. He sprinted past me, his face set in a mask of pure rage. I reached the threshold just as the man in the hoodie lunged from the kitchen. It happened so fast. Ethan threw a punch, but the man had a knife. I saw the glint of steel and heard Ethan's sharp cry of pain as the blade sliced into his side. "Ethan!" I shrieked. Ethan stumbled, clutching his ribs, blood pouring through his fingers. But he's a fighter. He grabbed a heavy ceramic vase from the entry table and swung it with everything he had, smashing it against the man's head. The guy staggered, dazed, but he still had the knife. He started to raise it again, looking right at Ethan's throat. I didn't even think. I couldn't. I just knew I had to do something. I saw our heavy cast iron skillet on the counter. I grabbed it with both hands and swung it like a baseball bat, catching the man squarely in the back of the skull. The sound was sickening, a dull, heavy clunk. He crumpled to the floor like a sack of bricks. The knife clattered away. He didn't move. I collapsed next to Ethan, using my shirt to press against his wound. "I've got you, I've got you," I kept whispering, though I was the one shaking. I called 911, my voice cracking as I gave our address. The police arrived in minutes. They found out the man was a local who had been scouting the houses in the area. He'd climbed in through a faulty latch on window while I was at the cafe. If I hadn't come home when I did, or if Ethan hadn't been so close, I don't want to think about it. Ethan ended up with 15 stitches and a scar he'll have for the rest of his life. We left California the next day. We're back in Australia now, in the safety of our own home. But even here, thousands of miles away, I don't go to the kitchen at night without turning on every single light. And I never, ever leave the house without making sure Ethan's phone is in his hand. I've always been a brave person. I travel solo, I hike alone, and I've stayed in dozens of Airbnbs across the country without a single issue. But what happened last November in a small, isolated town in upstate New York changed me. I don't stay in Airbnbs anymore. I don't even like being in a house alone. I had rented a small, charming cottage on the edge of a dense forest. It was one of those superhost properties. Perfect reviews, beautiful photos of a stone fireplace and cozy blankets. I needed a weekend to finish my master's thesis in peace. No distractions, no noise. I arrived late on a Friday night. The rain was already coming down in sheets. The house was older than it looked in the photos, with creaky floorboards and high vaulted ceilings that seemed to swallow the light. I checked in using the keypad, locked the door behind me, and settled into the living room with my laptop. Around 12:30 a.m., I heard it, a rhythmic thud, 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 coming from the kitchen. I walked in and saw a steady stream of water leaking from the ceiling, splashing onto the hardwood floor. It was right above the island. I sighed, grabbed a pot to catch the water, and messaged the host, a man named Marcus. I didn't expect a reply until morning, but my phone buzzed almost instantly. "Oh no, I'm so sorry. That pipe must have burst with the storm. Listen, my regular maintenance guy, Alonzo, lives just down the road. I'll call him now. He can be there in 20 minutes to patch it so it doesn't ruin the floor." I felt a wave of relief. "Thanks, Marcus. I appreciate it," I replied. 20 minutes later, right on cue, there was a heavy knock at the door. I looked through the peephole. A tall man in a yellow rain slicker was standing there, carrying a large metal toolbox. His hood was pulled low, and his face was mostly obscured by a thick gray beard. I opened the door, and the cold wind rushed in. "Alonzo?" I asked. He just nodded, his eyes fixed on the floor. He didn't say a word. He walked past me, his heavy boots thumping on the wood, and went straight to the kitchen. I felt a bit awkward, so I sat back down at the dining table with my laptop, trying to look busy. Alonzo was strange. He didn't make the usual sounds of a repairman. There was no clanking of wrenches or humming. He just stood on a stepladder staring up at the leak. Every few minutes I'd look up and he'd be perfectly still, just watching the water drip into the pot. "Is it a big fix?" I asked, trying to break the silence. He didn't turn around. In a low, raspy voice, he said, "The pressure is building. It's deeper than the pipe." A chill ran down my spine. Something about his tone felt wrong. It wasn't the voice of a professional. It was the voice of someone who hadn't spoken to another human in a long time. He stayed for nearly an hour. Most of that time, he just moved slowly around the kitchen, opening cabinets and closing them with a soft click. I was starting to get really uncomfortable. My grip tightened on my phone. I kept thinking, just finish and leave, just finish and leave. Finally, he packed his tools. He walked to the front door, paused, and looked at me. For the first time, I saw his eyes. They were wide, bloodshot, and fixed on me with a terrifying intensity. "Keep the pot under it," he whispered. "Don't let it overflow." Then he stepped out into the rain and disappeared into the dark. I bolted the door, turned the deadbolt, and leaned my back against it, my heart hammering. I felt silly for being so scared, but the vibe in that house had turned sour. I sat back down and tried to focus on my screen. 5 minutes passed, then 10. My phone buzzed on the table. It was a notification from the Airbnb app, a new message from the host, Marcus. "Hey, I just saw your message. My phone was on silent. I'm so sorry about the leak. It's too late to send anyone tonight, but I'll have a plumber there first thing at 8 a.m. Hope it's not too bad." I felt the air leave my lungs. My hands started to shake so violently I almost dropped the phone. "I just saw your message?" I scrolled up. The messages from Marcus telling me that Alonzo was coming, they were gone. The entire conversation thread from 20 minutes ago had vanished, replaced only by this new message. I realized with a jolt of pure terror that the person I'd been messaging wasn't the host. Someone had intercepted the app, or maybe the Wi-Fi. And then I heard it. The thud, thud, thud in the kitchen stopped. But it wasn't because the leak had finished. It was because the pot was no longer under the drip. I crept to the kitchen doorway, my phone's flashlight trembling in my hand. The pot had been moved to the center of the kitchen floor. I looked up at the ceiling where the leak was, but there was no water. The leak I had seen earlier wasn't water at all. It was a dark, thick, viscous liquid. I looked back at my phone. A new message popped up, not from Marcus, from an unknown user. I didn't fix the pipe. I just turned off the valve to the attic. My eyes slowly traveled upward. Right above the spot where the man, Alonzo, had been standing on the ladder, there was a small, square attic crawl space cover. It was slightly ajar, and from the darkness of the attic, I heard a soft, raspy voice whisper, "I told you, don't let it overflow." I didn't scream. I didn't grab my bag. I ran. I sprinted out the front door into the freezing rain, barefoot, and I didn't stop until I reached the main road. I flagged down a passing truck, hysterical and sobbing. When the police arrived at the cottage an hour later, the house was empty. The maintenance man was gone, but they found something in the attic that the lead detective told me I was better off not knowing. However, I saw the forensic photos during the deposition. The man hadn't been a maintenance man. He had been living in that attic for weeks, watching every guest through the vents. And the leak in the kitchen wasn't a burst pipe. He had drilled a hole through the attic floor and had been slowly pouring a mixture of spoiled milk and red paint through it just to see if I would invite him in to fix it. The shocking part was when they checked the Airbnb records, they found that the real Alonzo, the host's actual maintenance man, had been missing for 3 days. They found his yellow rain slicker and his toolbox in the attic, along with a collection of photos of me taken from the cafe I'd stopped at 3 towns away, hours before I even arrived at the house. He wasn't waiting for a guest. He was waiting for me.